Hi, welcome back to me talking about my version of the Marauders in podcast form with Emma. This is a bonus episode. Did you know that? This is pretty crazy. Okay, I did see a question last time that I wanted to answer, and it was like, what Billy Joel song would each Marauder be? It's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good question.
These songs I know.
I know. I'm like, I know. I also know these songs very well. Oh gosh. This is actually a more difficult question than you would think, because it's like, I have Billy Joel songs that I imagine being in the story. Like, She's Always a Woman. Perfect. James, when they're like helping unpack, like, or helping pack up her, her parents' house and stuff, and she found this album, like, oh my gosh, falls in love with her all over again to that song. But, like, is that a James song? I don't know.
I feel like Sirius would be a My Life kind of guy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely My Life. Absolutely, 100%.
They're all so good.
I know! I know, it's hard.
They're all so serious.
But I do have a perfect one. I wish this album had come out in the timeline, because Thomas, I know he's not a Marauder, Thomas is the epitome of the song An Innocent Man. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good, and I also feel like that song, if it was in the TV show, which it wouldn't be because it's out of the timeline, it would be Thomas, like, it would go into a full music video situation, and it would be Thomas singing it, and it would be like montages of him and Lily doing things, and James in the background like glaring at them. I think it's perfect. I think, yeah, it's a great
Can
song.
I throw out Only the Good Die Young?
The vibes of that song are serious, but truly we shouldn't bring that into the conversation at all. Oh gosh, this is like harder than I thought.
I know. There's so many that work for Sirius. Like,
there's all of them are Sirius
them.
and Lily. That's the problem. You May Be Right.
You May Be Right is such a good song.
Is
I feel
James
like that's
coded?
James.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Just maybe a lunatic you're looking for. That's James.
Mm-hmm.
He's the lunatic.
He really is. I would say, honestly, Just the Way You Are gives me Remus vibes. But
You're only human for Remus.
yeah, that's fair. Oh, we gotta find
Serious.
one for Peter.
Peter
low-key gives me Uptown Girl vibes. There's not a reason for it, but, like, yeah. Longest Time is Lily and James. Found a Remus one. Summer Highland Falls. Remus. 1,000%. It's so good. That's actually my favorite Billy Joel song. No. It's up there, though.
Honesty for Peter.
Angry Young Man for Peter. Okay, I feel like we've just kept on saying
Don't ask me
words.
why I might say for Peter.
Don't ask me. Yeah. That's a good Peter one. Okay, I think we've hit everybody at least once. So, okay. All right.
They're all so good.
They're all so good. We can talk about Billy Joel all day. I just saw Billy Joel again in concert. Oh my gosh. Yeah, saw Billy Joel and Stevie Nicks. Stevie Nicks' voice was amazing. But I was there for Billy Joel. Yeah, it was really great. Anyway. Let's roll on into it. No, when I said roll, I was thinking like somersault. Like you just got a somersault, but like continuously. Anyway, let's do that into the episode. Okay, so this is like a while later. Like, they've kind of had their adjusting. They've been on like a couple order mission, like a couple, like little ones, like when they really needed like all hands on deck type of things, because they're not up there. And, and a lot of that is due to, like, first of all, Alastair Moody is, like, in charge with Minerva. Both of them are like, you're not doing anything. Minerva's like, they're children. Alastair's like, they're crazy. So it just doesn't really work out very much. But anyway, so they're like 18, maybe some of them are 19. They're slowly moving up the ranks. I know that's us. They're just kind of getting maybe to start being in some more important meetings, stuff like that. There's one little thing that I was like, maybe I should do a little bonus episode about, but then I was like, even that is too short. At some point, when they're on one of these missions, Lily runs into Snape when fighting, and it's really awkward and, like, not good, but you get to think of how that happens. That gets to be your version, but just so she knows that he's there, and she, like, kind of has emotions about that and everything. But anyway, point of the story. Eventually, James gets into a bit of a Jamesy situation. So when it got out that, like, James Potter is in the order, like, to the Death Eaters, like, when that kind of became known, they were like, okay, so his parents were probably in the order too. They just kind of assumed that just based off of their character. And so they're like, James already knows a ton. James probably has a ton of information.
Everything.
And, that's just kind of the assumption that is made, but he doesn't know that at that point. Anyway, one day, Lily's at home in Godric's Hollow, just, being Lily.
Baking.
Just chillin'. Baking the correct way. Anyway, and while James is, like, off doing, like, a minor order mission where he's, like, keeping watch over, like, a ministry person, so he's just, like, stationed somewhere and, like, has a shift or whatever. Anyway, it's not that big of a deal. But he walks in the door and he's like, Lily, I'm home. And she's like, okay. She's like, hi, how's it going? Like, how was it? And, they start talking immediately, but Lily is kind of like, okay, something's wrong here. Like, I can't put my finger on it, but something is wrong here. And she's like, hey, like, are you upset? She's like, hey, you want to, like, bake cookies? Like, try to see, like, is he upset? Is he sad? And he's like, nah, you can't. She's like, hold on. Something's wrong here. He likes to bake. This is a problem. But, eventually, he's kind of like, yeah, sorry, I am not doing great. Let me just, like, go get changed, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, James. And he's like, Lily, just thanks for being you. And without hesitation, she immediately uses a disarming charm, stunning charm, and then tackles him straight to the ground. And he's like, Lily, what the heck? And she's like, where is my husband? And he's like, what? And he's like, Lily, what is going on? And she's like, that's it again. You called me Lily. When's the last time you freaking called me Lily with 2 syllables and not Lils? And he's like, okay, I'm sorry. And she's like, nah, something's not right. You're not James. Your physical mannerisms are all off too. And he's like, Lily, you need to calm the heck down. You might be overreacting a little bit. And she's like, James would never tell me I'm overreacting. James would start getting suspicious of himself right now. And she's like, who the heck are you? And so immediately she, like, I feel like Sirius, Remus, and Peter, they have a way to call each other, basically. Maybe they actually have muggle phones. That would actually fit their characters pretty well. But she gets all of them over here. She's like, you guys need to get over here right the heck now. And so they operate over there. And James is like, has like full body binding things on the ground. And she's like, has her one pointed out. And they're like, whoa, what's going on here? And she's like, it's not James. And James is like, hey guys, I think Lily might be having a breakdown.
And they're like,
low key. And they're like, it's obviously me. But they're like, okay, maybe, things are stressful. Maybe this is Lily just like a little bit on edge. Mm-hmm. We don't want to blame her or anything. And so, but, Remus is like, Lily, why don't you think it's James? And she's like, he called me Lily. And Sirius is like, my bad, isn't that your name? And she's like, he calls me Lils, only Lils. And Peter's like, okay, no, he definitely has called you Lily before. She's like, when he's talking about me, it's Lily. When it's to me, it's Lils. It's been that way ever since he kissed me. Or since she kissed him, I think is how it went. But then, this James fella is like, he's like, okay, come on, Lils, I made a mistake. And she's like, don't Lils me now, you prat. She calls him a prat for sure. But then he's like, okay, come on, Padfoot, Wormtail, Mooney, come on, it's me. Can you guys, like, at least, like, not have me tied up on the ground? Like, this is a little much, you know, don't we think? And Lily kind of huffs, and she's like, she's like, oh yeah, and Lily's like, when's the anniversary of the first day we kissed? And he's like, I don't know. She's like, exactly, it's not him. And he's like, I'm in a bit of a stressful situation right now. I don't think this is it. And Remus is like, okay, so you know the nicknames, but do you know what they're for? And James is like, are you actually believing her? And Remus is like, just answer. And, you know, James hesitates for a second. He's like, well, you're Moony because, you know, you're a werewolf. And they're like, okay, that's pretty on the down low, so that's probably, it might be James. And Remus is like, and he's like, the rest of us. And he's like, well, we were kids, we all needed one so that you wouldn't be left out. And at that moment they're all like, oh my gosh, it's not James. And at this point the James knows that he's messed up, because everybody's like, oh shoot, he doesn't know that he's an animagus. This is pretty bad. Everyone's faces fall. I think Sirius says a bad word. And Peter's like, oh my gosh, that's not James. And Lily's like, what did I tell you? And Remus is like, we absolutely stand corrected, Lily. You did a great job. Now let's figure out how to get this dirtbag to headquarters and out of your house. So pretty soon half the order is at Godric's Hollow, because they're like, what the heck? They just assumed that like this James would like just be using Polyjuice Potion, and they could just kind of reverse that pretty easily, or just wait it out. But they found that that's not true. Whatever had happened, they anticipated, the Death Eaters anticipated that this would take a long time for people to figure out. They had permanently changed this person's like physical characteristics to look like James, and the only way that you could change it back is if you already knew what they looked like. Like, permanent changes here. This is not like a magical temporary, I'm gonna look like they basically did plastic surgery. And they're like, shoot, like, this is intended to be a long mission, so then more Order members are coming in, and they don't want to take this person back to headquarters, so they're just leaving it here, and they're doing all the interrogations, like, in Godric's Hollow, and it's pretty bad. But, you know, he was not intending to be caught, like, 2 minutes after walking in the door. And so they're like, okay, now, and all this on Lily's mind is like, where is James? Like, what is going on with him? And so immediately Lily's like, okay, Minerva, Alastair, when can we go find James? Like, how do we find James? When, like, we gotta go now. And Alastair's like, no, you won't be doing anything. She's like, excuse me?
He's like, who figured out this was a spy?
Yeah, and she's like, he's like, you don't have the clearance for a mission like this. He's like, none of you do. But, like, you know, James is gonna be found as soon as we can. We already have a lead on it. It's gonna be fine. And she's like, okay, but when? And he's like, as soon as we can get a team assembled. And she's like, when? And Minerva's like, probably tomorrow morning, but it like won't take longer than a day or two. And Lily's like, oh no. We gotta go now. And she's like, what? She's like, Minerva, who knows where he could be? He could be like getting tortured or worse, and like, we gotta go now. And she's like, Lily, that wouldn't be safe. Things like this need plans. I know you're worried, but odds are he's fine. Like, they need a real person to refer back to in order for this type of thing to work. So it's just good that you found him this quickly. She's like, but we don't even know where he is. She's like, it's gonna be fine. And then she's like, okay, maybe this will chill Lily out. She's like, we already know that this person, whoever he is, came from a known Death Eater house. He still had like a location trace. He had recently used magic somewhere else, so they could like figure that out. And she's like, so like, we know where he came from, and that's probably where James is. So like, we're gonna figure it out at some point. And Lily's like, she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, we need to go. She's like, but yeah, no, she's like, we just can't go running into this without a plan. Like, do you understand? We don't even know who this person is yet. That's just here, not giving up anything. We're trying to get Vera to see her and all this stuff. And Lily's like, fine, okay. And then Minerva pulls like the whole gang aside, and she's like, listen, I know it's James, but we can't just run into something willy-nilly. You guys got to be patient for a bit. And I know you guys all understand. And they're like, sure, we understand. You guys just can't go doing anything. And Sirius is about to give her a piece of his mind, and then Remus is like, no, shut up. And he's like, yeah, we get it. We totally get it. We're not gonna do anything. But like, you know, Lily, I think it's probably best if you get out of this house, because, like, now there's everybody here. It's stressful. We gotta get our minds off of this, right? And she's like, heck no, I'm not leaving. What are you talking about? He's like, Lily, I think you should come to my house. And Minerva's like, that's probably a good idea. Thank you so much, Remus. You're so good at this. She's like, that's such a great idea, Remus. So they all apparate to Remus in Sirius's living room, and in about a second, Sirius is like, okay, so we're going to find him, like, right now, right? And they're like, yeah. And Lily's like, Minerva said he was at a Death Eater house, and Remus is like, cool, and I overheard someone mention the Malfoys. So you think it's their manor? Sirius is like, yep, absolutely. Only one way to find out. And Lily's like, you think you remember well enough to apparate us all there, Sirius? And he's like, yep. And Peter's like, hold on. Now we're gonna go right now. And they're like, yeah. And he's like, without anyone? And Sirius is like, what's the alternative? We wait hours until the Order decides he's a big enough priority. Lily's like, he would do the same for any of us. And Peter's like, well, shoot, you're right. And that's all it took. So, like, within about 2 minutes, they had left the house and were already at Malfoy Manor. And if this was a TV show, this would be a cut to them, like, slow-mo walking into the manor, immediately knocking down, like, all protection spells first try because Lily's just that pissed. And, like, just, they walk in, throw open the door, and there's a pause, and one of this, like, Death Eater person who's just kind of there, and he's like, who are you? And she's like, where's James? And the Death Eater's like, oh, shoot. And he touches his dark mark, calling other people there, and suddenly, they're in their first, like, actual fight. And things get crazy. But luckily, they're good at fighting, especially when
and they're mad.
When they're really, really mad, and also no one was expecting them to be. I want to say they sent James out, like, but 15 minutes before they're already there. Like, this whole thing has happened so fast. But luckily, Malfoy Manor is massive. And so as soon as they realize that they're starting to get outnumbered, like, more Death Eaters and stuff are showing up, they use it to their advantage. They're, like, going through the whole house, they're hiding in hallways, they're knocking out people left and right. And at first things are good, but then more and more Death Eaters start to arriving, and Lily is like, okay, shoot, we might be in over our head when it comes to just, like, defeating them all. So we gotta just, we gotta do something. But then things get really, really real when Sirius somehow actually got hit with a disarming spell and lost his wand completely outright. And at that moment, they're like, oh, shoot, we just lost one of our fighters, and now Sirius is just here without a wand. Like, what the heck?
He's just hanging.
But, so Lily's like, okay, shoot, we have to be looking for him. And she's like, we gotta split up. And so they do for a bit. But soon it's like Peter and Sirius are, like, going upstairs more, trying to look through all the rooms up there, and get away from the bulk of people who are still downstairs, where Lily and Remus are fighting them off as best as they could. So, like, those are the vibes. But then as Sirius and Peter turn a corner in, like, this maze of a house, Sirius gets hit again because he doesn't have a wand for protection. And so now Sirius's like shoulder got hit, and he's, like, bleeding pretty profusely, and it's, like, not good at all. And Peter's like, oh my gosh, I think he might, like, die. Like, what is happening here? This is our first thing. We went in with no protection, and they're realizing that was probably a mistake. And Sirius is like, Peter, you gotta leave me. And he's like, what? And he's like, I'm gonna slow you down. I can't help you. You gotta go on for your own for a bit and try and find him. I'll be fine. I'm gonna hide. Like, that's gonna be what it is. And Peter tries to protest, but then he's like, he's right. Like, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here as fast as possible. And so, Peter goes on, and Sirius is alone. And up here it's, like, quiet, which is, like, somehow scarier to him. Like, I feel like wizarding fights are, like, not loud. Because it's magic. Like, there's no music or anything, and so it's intense for
there's
sure.
No music as opposed to Muggle fights.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. There's always fights. I mean, there's always fight music, But anyway, so it's, like, kind of quiet, and it's just super unnerving. And so he's just, like, painfully aware of, like, how vulnerable he is right now, just standing in a hallway alone, wandless, like, bleeding out. And so he, like, tries to go down the hallway and slips into a room. But he's realizing he's definitely trailing blood behind him. So he's like, oh, shoot, I'm gonna get caught, like, in 2 seconds. This is not good. He just has to hope that Peter's somehow gonna find James and be able to fight off anyone there. Like, just gotta hope. And then he hears footsteps in the hallway, and he's like, oh, shoot, that's not, like, any of us. Like, this is somebody looking for people. And at first they're, like, quick and stuff, but then the person, like, finds the trail of blood and, like, slows down and is following him right there. And he's like, I'm wounded, I have no wand, and this isn't one of my friends. And there's a silence as the person just, like, waits outside the door. And funnily enough, Sirius, even in this situation, is, like, gets annoyed pretty quickly. He's like, so you're just gonna stand outside the door? But like, he says out loud,
speed things up.
He says out loud, he's like, well, are you gonna kill me, or are you just gonna stand outside the room like an idiot? And there's no response. And he's like, okay, come on, I don't have a wand, I'm a sitting target. And there's nothing. And he's like, what the heck is this? And then the door opens, and he can't, like, see who's outside the door because it, like, opens, like, where he's at. And somebody tosses something into the middle of the room. And he realizes that the object is a wand. And he's like, oh my gosh, is that my wand? And then he looks at it. He's like, was it his? Like, they want to have, like, a real fight, you know? Like, that's his first thought. And then he looks at it and sees it similar to his, but it's not. It's Regulus's wand. And he dives for it, he points it at the open doorway just to be sure, but it's just Regulus, and he's alone. And he's like, what are you doing? And Regulus ignores this. And he's like, he's upstairs. He's in the attic tower. I'm pretty sure Peter will find him soon. And Sirius decides right now is not the time to question his brother's motives, but he can tell he's telling the truth, and that's all that matters, and he probably knows more than Sirius does anyway, so he's like, okay. And Regulus steps aside, like, clearly telling Sirius, like, go in the hallway, you know, get out of here. And so he does, and he's about to run away and just not question it. But Regulus is like, nah, you gotta make it look like we've had, like, a good fight. And Sirius is like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, stun me at the very least, like, maybe a stinging hex too. And Sirius is like, no. And Regulus is like, Sirius, now. And he's like, no. He's like, you gave me your wand, and I don't take that lightly. I'm not gonna stun you. And he's like, that's not the story. The story is that you attacked me physically, got my wand, and stunned me. That's the only way. And Sirius is like, what? No. And he's like, just do it, and then go save your frickin' friend quickly before anyone sees. And then Sirius just stops for a second, and he's like, what am I supposed to do here? And then he's like, come with me. Just help me save James, and then just leave with us. And there's a pause, and he's like, Sirius gestures to the wand, and he's like, if this is how you feel, like, come with me. And Regulus is like, no, I'm helping you, not them. And Sirius is like, oh my gosh. And he's like, fine. And he turns to go. And Regulus is like, Sirius, if you don't make it look like we had a fight, I will die. They will kill me. And so finally Sirius turns around and he does as he's told. He doesn't stun him, but he makes it look like they had a real fight. Puts, like, a stinging hex, a full body bind. He can't knock his brother out. But then he heals his shoulder enough to stop the bleeding. And before he turns to go, he's like, thank you, Regulus. So Sirius goes upstairs, and sure enough, James is in this, you know, tower that has some sort of enchanted room, and Peter is fighting none other than Snape, who is the last line of defense there. So fun.
Our bestie.
I know, our bestie. So it doesn't take long for Sirius to finish off the fight. You know, Snape, he didn't have a hard time knocking Snape out. I'm just gonna say, like, there's no mental block there. Really? But then, I know, it's kind of crazy. But then he begins working on the curses that are, like, keeping James in the room, and James is trying to help him, like, just talking him through it. But then Peter's like, we gotta go get Lily. So he runs downstairs and gets her, and soon enough she's up in the tower, and it's Peter and Remus fighting off downstairs. And she, like, biggest explosion you've ever seen, totally just is like, we're gonna get through here with brute force, and it works. And Lily hugs James as tight as she can, and he's like, Lils, oh my gosh. And she's like, finally, it's you. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, when's our anniversary? And he's confused, but he answers. And she's like, okay, let's get out of here. And James grabs his wand from an unconscious Snape who had taken it. But anyway, so then they run downstairs, and it is scary at this point, because, like, they should not have been here, first of all. And at first it was, like, people being like, okay, like, we need a couple people to, like, knock these people out. And then they just kept on going. And so now they have, like, actual important Death Eaters here, and things are getting really bad. But they already have James. And so they're just running out of there as fast as they can, trying to throw curses left and right, because they can't apparate until they're outside of the gates, because, you know, they have those freaking rules, because it's a Death Eater place or whatever. So they're trying to get out of there, but they're noticing that they can still, that the weird apparition that Death Eaters can do, like the smoky shroopy thing, they can still do that in here. So they're really at a disadvantage here. But then as they're leaving, they're getting through, like, the they're getting through the gate. It's very intense. It's crazy things are happening, and then as they go, literally, Voldemort himself apparates in at the last second, because that's how big this has gotten, and he's mad, and Sirius is like, oh my gosh, we gotta go right now, and they run out as fast as they possibly can and apparate at the last possible second, and they all get out. And they get to headquarters, and so that's where this one ends. There's a little bit of a part 2 later, but I want to say that this is one of the times that Lily and James defied Voldemort. So kind of important, you know. James had a fun time. But yeah, so that's kind of the end of this one. But yeah, I think Voldemort had to be there at the end for them to have actually defied him, technically. But yeah, so that's one of their times. But
wow,
yeah, kind of my favorite little mission. They're gonna face quite a few angry Order members when they get back. But yeah, I think they did a great job overall. I think 11 out of 10 mission.
That poor guy. Well, I shouldn't say that about, like, the literal Death Eater.
But I know, the poor people, I don't know if I'm gonna say it in this next one, but I think this was like a lower members of Death Eater being like, we're gonna get something big because we're gonna get James Potter and he probably knows a lot and we're gonna do this, and it was like maybe not even really approved by Voldemort, and so they get in a lot of trouble for this because it was a very bad idea. But yeah, and I think Snape was involved and he was like, oh yeah, I can tell somebody how to impersonate James any day, and he could not. And Lily figured it out pretty dang quickly. But yeah, I think, and I also think that people always asking questions within the Order about, like, you know, is this really you? It started here, and it started with Lily.
When's our anniversary?
When's our anniversary? So yeah, pretty good. Anyway, that's the episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Really appreciate it. Shout out Benji and Modest. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye!
I like that one more.
Yeah. I know.